In this day and age, there are several ways to fund the development of a cryptocurrency. Now, building a cryptocurrency now is not easy. You need developers, sometimes you need cryptographers, you need, people to manage your social media and marketing and PR. There are real costs to running a cryptocurrency. Back then, when Bitcoin was the only one around, or there were like just a handful of other cryptocurrencies, it was just all about community based. But now with, venture capital and real money flowing in, and we have to realize that to be truly innovative and in this space, rather than just copying technology, general funding is required for any sort of cryptocurrency project. Of course, there are exceptions, but let's just kind of go through what are the possible ways that a cryptocurrency can be funded today. So the one of them is just through pure donations, right? You ask for donations, and people donate and people work on it. There's several ways to implement this, right? You can have what we call a crowdfunding system, which Monero actually uses, where people put up proposals and people can choose to fund it or not. There are also cases like, for example, in Bitcoin, how is Bitcoin funded, right? People who hold a lot of Bitcoin or who have an interest in seeing Bitcoin succeed or would like to kind of influence the direction of Bitcoin would then fund development teams to work on Bitcoin Core and things like that. So that's also another way of funding as well. Now, the most common way right now, especially for newer cryptocurrencies, is to do either an ICO or a pre-sale, initial coin offering or pre-sale. And what that means is that, I sell this token based on certain promises that, I will deliver this and this, and, you give me the money, and then we go and develop this thing. Or a pre-sale is kind of similar, as that it may not be offered to the public. I find strategic partners like exchanges or good VCs or influencers, and then divide my supply from the beginning, saying, okay, yeah, 20% for exchanges, 30% for ecosystem development, 15% for team, just to say. So that's how like pre-sale models work. And I guess the way that we do it is through what we call a development reward, where part of the block reward is channeled towards development funding. And Firo currently is primarily funded by a block reward for the developers. And what that means is that for every new block that is created, 15% of that new reward goes towards a development fund for the core developers to use. And this has certain benefits, right? Because the issue with what we say like ICOs or pre-sales is that often the money is obtained upfront, and then you have to then trust them to deliver the product. And we have seen, especially in the days of ICOs, where people have already gotten raised like 10, 20 million, there isn't much of an incentive to build the product after that, because all the money they've already gotten up front. We've seen, like, of course there are exceptions, Ethereum was an ICO and stuff like that, but for the most part I would say, like, for every 10 ICOs there only one really delivered on their promises. Pre-sales also have similar issues where if we're talking about decentralized cryptocurrencies, right, where we want to build a currency for everyone, selling certain blocks of it to interested parties, kind of goes against the grain of what decentralized cryptocurrency is about. If I'm just going to allocate things like that, it's very like having a company, right? It's like, okay, let's make a company, and then I need certain key investors in it, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it is not in line if you want to be what we call like a cryptocurrency. Donations also have their own set of issues, right? I would say like the best, the project that has, I guess, that I know of that does donations the best, I would say is Monero, and they have actually a very active community that are willing to donate to fund certain fund certain initiatives, research and stuff like that. But it's also, I would say that is kind of an outlier, because first of all, there are many people that, you know, early on got really rich, you know, when Monero became really successful, and many of these efforts are being funded by these people who have an interest to see Monero continue to succeed. There's nothing wrong with that, you know, but whether this is scalable for the long term, that's a big question mark. And also, you know, the way donations work also can lead to job uncertainty for developers, right? Where you constantly have to be seeking for funding, you constantly have to be asking the community, please give me, you know, this amount of money, and that sometimes can hurt when you're trying to attract talent, right? So there's pros and cons. I do think that a donation model makes it like as decentralized as possible, but you know, especially for other projects which does not have like people like early supporters, donations can be quite tough. So how Firo is funded is through a combination of a development reward of 15% of the block reward, and we are also opening up several ways that people can donate. The first being the Firo crowdfunding system that works similarly to Monero's system, where people can, anyone in the community can say, I have this idea, I would like it to be funded, and it's for the community to donate it. And I think that's great, because you know, there's a way for community members to seek funding. There's another thing that we also playing around with, which is what we call the Magic Fund. This hasn't been finalized yet, but it would allow this almost an entity that has special tax status. And what happens is that people can donate US dollars or fiat money into it and get tax deductible you know, receipts, right? And instead of it being managed by the core team, there will be a separate committee that is elected by the community to decide how to allocate these funds. So I don't think Firo in the long term, you know, I don't think we should be funded by a development reward, a 15% development reward forever. We are trying to find ways to reduce the reliance on this, because eventually privacy cryptocurrencies, we want to avoid any sort of central point of failure, right? We don't want, you know, let's say, you know, if they come after the core team, there has to be other ways of funding this project. And obviously we cannot just remove the trainer wheels now. We have a combination, and we are starting to try to experiment to have community contributions to fund stuff, and it also decentralizes the decision making, because if we are the only ones who get funding, we have a very, very big say in deciding the development direction. So right now, again, I guess kind of wrap up, yes, we have a 15% block reward, which is not there for eternity. We have a 2 years, every 2 years the community has to check in to say, are they satisfied with it? Should we revisit the amount? Should we reduce, right? And then we also augmenting it with donation mechanisms, be it through the crowdfunding system, a possible what we call magic fund. And there's also another way called open collective, where people can make monthly contributions for little perks like, you know, statuses in our server and stuff like that. So hopefully together with all these different funding mechanisms, we will be able to continue putting out groundbreaking, world-class research in privacy, and, you know, bring Firo to greater heights. Thank you.